On this episode of Worship and Wine, we're going to be discussing spontaneous worship. What is spontaneous worship? Are we about it? Coming up. So, as we do, we're going to start off by opening up a new bottle of wine. So today we have a nice Sauvignon Blanc from Bonterra. It's a 2017, so it's fairly new.
What is that, duck face?
There we go.
Oh my god.
Sauvignon Blanc, Bonterra. It's a 2017. I'm going to open it up, and then I'll tell you guys why I chose this particular bottle of wine for this episode of Worship and Wine.
Please tell us.
I'll be happy to tell you.
I don't like white wine, by the way. It's not my favorite. But this one, maybe it'll be a game changer.
Cheers.
Let's smell it. It's because of the smell.
You don't like the smell?
I don't know. Like it has like a, I don't know, like a champagne-y type smell.
It kind of does. It smells kind of nice.
I don't really like it.
Definitely has a very fresh aroma.
You think that's fresh?
I do.
To me, it smells stingy. Like stingy. Okay, sure.
Sort of has an aroma of pear.
Okay, let's see. Does it say what would go good with this?
It's very soft on the palate.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Goes back very smooth. It doesn't have very much of a bite at all.
This is... Okay, no, this is great. This is great. This holistic approach balances the land and surrounding. I know there's something before this, but it just caught my eye. The habit of wasps, birds, and wildlife to produce wines of unmatched flavor and distinction. It's just really very earthy.
I would consider it a distinct flavor.
Okay, what do you taste in this? Did you read this?
I did.
Oh, dang it. It says honeydew. I don't taste honeydew.
You know, honeydew is kind of, it's on the aftertaste.
Really?
This Sauvignon Blanc, it features aromas of grapefruit and kiwi with crisp acidity and lush flavors of honeydew.
Maybe it's the kiwi that gives it that smell.
So what's interesting is there's a crisp acidity, for show, but it's not like a bite like you would expect.
It's kind of, it's light. It's not.
It is.
Yeah. So that's nice. I can continue to drink it, even though it's not my first go-to.
Yeah.
I'm super picky. Do you think?
Yes, I would agree.
Well,
What would you say this wine would go well with?
Well, it's a white wine. What does white wine go good with? Because I don't ever drink it.
I feel like it would go well with dessert. The thing that comes to mind is like an apple pie.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A warm apple pie.
Mm-hmm. Or chicken.
This could probably be chilled a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely should be chilled.
Yeah.
We should have chilled it. It wasn't
chilled it.
Yeah.
This episode, we're going to base this episode on a question that we received on our Instagram. And the question is, what's up with spontaneous worship? Are you guys all about it or nah?
Well, this one I want to talk about first.
Okay.
Because I'm all about it.
You're all about the
I'm so all about it. Yeah.
All about that spontaneity.
I love spontaneous worship. I feel like I thrive in that. I want to do that. It's a part of my heart to get a little bit deep. All about it. What about you?
You know, I could take it or leave it, to be honest. I enjoy the spontaneity. I enjoy improvising, but I'm also a stickler for structure, too.
Mm.
So
I'm a stickler for structure, too.
Yeah. But I think it's possible to mesh the two.
Yeah.
I think that, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but I think in order to be successful in spontaneity, you have to have some sort of structure.
Yeah, you gotta have, you gotta start with something.
I agree.
You can't just be like, well, I guess you probably could. Yes, you could. You could totally just be like, wah, wah.
How about we set some definitions? How about we discuss the difference between spontaneous worship and prophetic worship.
Oh. Whoa. Okay. Well, you're going to have to give the definition of what prophetic is for some of those that maybe don't know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess maybe what spontaneous would look like too.
Let's do it.
Can you see my lipstick stain?
I think a lot of people who are familiar with spontaneous worship would agree. I took a lot of pauses there. I think that a lot of people who are familiar with spontaneous worship would probably agree that Bethel and the Bethel movement really popularized spontaneous worship.
No. Well, maybe. I don't know. I think House of Prayer kind of did that.
That's true.
Yeah, because that's where I learned it first, was House of Prayer, before I even heard of Bethel.
Yeah, but I think Bethel really brought it into the mainstream.
Okay, this is true. Yeah.
So
Good job, guys.
So this is how Bethel defines spontaneous worship.
Oh my goodness, you have a whole thing on it? Wow.
I have notes.
Okay, I love it.
I come prepared.
He does.
So,
did you see that? It was like a little book. It was like a little mini book right now.
Scrolling, scrolling, and scrolling, and scrolling.
Lots of scrolling.
Bethel defines spontaneous worship as fresh expressions of worship beyond the songs that have been pre-written, planned, and practiced.
Oh, that wasn't very much.
No. However, they differentiate prophetic worship and spontaneous worship.
Uh-huh.
Let's discuss.
All right. So I would consider, well, we do this a lot at our church.
What's that?
Where it's like spontaneous worship versus, well, I mean, we do prophetic too, but like I feel like we go through seasons, but we are always doing spontaneous worship. So basically what that looks like is we're doing a song, and then we have like this musical kind of like break.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we may, out of that song, have another spontaneous, like, few lyrics or something like that, and we'll go on that. So usually the worship leader will start it, or whoever is feeling it will start that vocal line, and then everybody else kind of follows. So I would consider that, like, more spontaneous worship. What would you consider it to be? I
think that is a swell definition.
Oh, thank you. Pat on the back for me. Oh my gosh. Who does that?
What?
Who does that? It's Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig.
Oh my gosh.
This is what we're talking about.
She's so funny. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a fresh expression of worship beyond the songs that have been pre-written or pre-planned.
Okay.
So really it's being sensitive to what you feel the Holy Spirit is doing in the moment,
mm-hmm.
and singing what you feel is appropriate in that situation.
Right. Yeah.
So, for example, you could be singing How He Loves, but maybe the moment is he wants to talk about devotion, and you start talking about a song that is less about how we feel, but more about our devotion to God. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like continuing on with something that's within the song, but a little bit different. So something fresh out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what about prophetic? What do you see as prophetic worship?
All right, so if you think about prophecy and what the term prophecy is biblically speaking.
Gotta go back to the biblical.
Gotta go back to the word.
Teacher. That's a teacher right there.
New Testament prophecy, anyways. It is declaring God's word over a person or situation to encourage them.
Right.
So when you're talking about prophetic worship, it's really just singing
mm-hmm.
to encourage the congregation, and it should be something that you feel inspired of by God.
Right.
So, and oftentimes it's similar to spontaneous worship because it's something that you receive in the moment. It's
mm-hmm.
not something that, I mean, I guess it could be pre-planned and pre-written, but typically I would say that it's something that you receive divinely in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that a lot, and I think that it's often when you're spending time like with God and you're kind of like built up or whatever he's speaking to you even throughout the week. Mm-hmm. And then at that moment when, you're with his people and you're worshiping, that's like the point where God will give you like a specific word for the church, or maybe there's like, I don't know, a person in the room. I started actually doing this thing with prophetic worship now where there's times where people need prayer and I have no idea how to pray, so I can just basically sing a song over them. And I started stepping out and doing that. So that could be a level of prophetic worship where you're just, God gives you something to say, but like sometimes you don't know how to articulate it, so you can do it through a song, just singing a song.
Yeah.
The song that God has given you, obviously. Or sometimes maybe it's just God giving you a song to sing over somebody that's already been written,
It could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, a lot of times prophecies are retold in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus often quoted prophecies about himself.
This is true. Yeah.
All right, so this is what Bethel has to say about the difference between prophetic worship and spontaneous worship. They differentiate spontaneous worship from prophetic worship in this way. Spontaneous worship springs from the overflow of our hearts toward His, speaking of God. Mm-hmm. Prophetic songs occur when we sense the stirrings of God's heart towards us. Mm-hmm. That is really cool.
Yeah.
The way that they differentiate it is that spontaneous worship is us singing to God, whereas prophetic worship is God singing over us.
Right. Yeah.
Ooh, that is good. That is gold.
Oh, you're feeling it. You're getting misty-eyed.
Feeling it. Let's talk about this wine. I really taste the honey.
Do you?
So it says lush flavors of honeydew, but more than that, it almost feels like there is actual honey mixed in.
Really?
It feels like honey is resting on my tongue.
Wow, where's my palate?
You need to exercise it more.
Is it numb?
It is. The reason why I picked this wine is for a couple reasons. First of all, it's a newer wine. It's only from last year. It's 2017. It's new. And when I started thinking about prophetic worship, there she is. Look at your face.
Oh, that's where they came up with those ideas on
photo booth. It's 2017, and when I started thinking about prophetic worship, it's something that's fresh, which is also why I chose a white wine, particularly a Sauvignon Blanc, because it's really a fresh flavor. Mm-hmm. So the other reason why I chose this was because it's made with organic grapes, and really the spontaneous worship, it has a level of being organic. So
yeah, it's true. It's
not
fitting.
Yeah, it's not something that you conjure up that's manufactured. It's real, genuine, and yeah. So that's why I chose the organic wine. And then lastly, you'll see that this was that the grapes are from Northern California. Here's Sonoma County, Mendocino, and Lake County. And as a lot of us know, Bethel and Jesus culture there originated from Northern California. In Redding, which is near Mount Shasta, Lake Shasta. So when I started thinking about...
Wow, this is detail. Gotta get the details in.
So when I started thinking about spontaneity and spontaneous worship, prophetic worship, this is the wine that I stumbled upon.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't call that a stumbling. A stumbling to me would be like, oh, like, wow, that's from Northern California. That would be a stumbling to me. To you, you're like, 30 minutes. Okay, Lake County, Mendocino, Sonoma, California. So, oh, wow, okay, yes, this is...
So this is the wine that was chosen for this episode.
Yeah.
Spontaneous worship.
Is this like a new thing?
That's how you get the genuine flavor of the wine.
Did you swish too?
Yeah. When I started thinking about spontaneous worship and going back and thinking about my experiences with it, I realized that even Hillsong and Hillsong United, they have quite a level of spontaneity in their worship as well.
Like what? Like what would you say?
Well, it just looks a little different. For example, in Hillsong and Hillsong United, a lot of their worship is, or a lot of their spontaneous worship is hidden or disguised during instrumental bits.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah.
So Hillsong really loves their guitar solos, and a lot of times there'll be a guitar solo, which you really could consider spontaneous.
Yeah.
Or prophetic.
Oh, yeah. And what about that one? I literally cannot remember the name. It was the one we were going to do. No, don't do that because then I really can't concentrate on which song it is. Basically, it's the one that talks about, remember it says love. She said love. They say love. Love and
so the worship song that talks about love.
No. The tag on Wild and Crazy they did.
Yes.
Oh. Nothing is as strong as your blood.
Yeah.
But what's the beginning of that? And then you go,
it's Fight My Battles.
This is how I fight my battles. Yeah. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. And then she says, but then she says, she says, at your table. Yeah. That's why, So there's a verse that talks.
Rewind.
There's a verse that talks about how God prepares a feast before you in the presence of your enemies. Mm-hmm. So when she says, this is how I fight my battle, and then her spontaneous is, at your table. Yeah. So the whole thing I think was like prophetic, but like I don't know, that one little line was just kind of thrown in there. At your table.
Yeah. So tell me, how do we fight our battles at the table?
Sitting and resting and just feasting.
Preach.
There's San Bernardino. It's coming out again. That's why he prepares a table for you
in the presence of
your enemies, because you're just feasting. Wow.
In a position of rest.
Right? You're not even cooking.
Ooh.
You're not preparing.
Tell me more.
Praise the Lord. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Worship and Wine.
So why don't you hit the thumbs up down below and that subscribe button. That way you can keep up to date with what we're doing.